The discovery of survival. The blue light of the holographic display cast an eerie glow across Science Director Krell's scaled face as she studied the latest pandemic projections. The numbers hadn't improved. If anything, they'd gotten worse. "Computer, verify extinction timeline for the Meraldi system," she said, her four-fingered hand trembling slightly as she adjusted her breathing apparatus. Verified. Complete societal collapse in 67 standard cycles. Functional extinction in 94. Krell closed her inner eyelids, allowing herself a brief moment of despair before her scientific training reasserted itself. The virus, dubbed the Stellar Plague, had emerged 18 months ago on a small trading outpost in the Cygnus Arm. Initial containment efforts had failed spectacularly as the pathogen demonstrated an unprecedented ability to mutate across species barriers. "Director Krell," a voice called from the laboratory entrance. "The Council is assembling for the emergency session. They're requesting your presence." Krell acknowledged her assistant with a perfunctory wave. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." The Council chamber of the Galactic Confederation was nearly empty now. Of the original 57 species represented, only 28 remained functional enough to maintain diplomatic presence. The others had either collapsed entirely or withdrawn to their homeworlds in desperate isolation attempts. Director Krell intoned High Chancellor Vex, his once imposing frame now diminished by stress and inadequate nutrition. "Your report, please." Krell stepped to the center of the chamber, interfacing her neural implant with the room's projection system. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy materialized, vast sections highlighted in red to indicate infected regions. "The situation continues to deteriorate," she began, her voice clinically detached despite the horror of her words. "The Thrazeri Collective is now fully compromised. The Baltorian Alliance has lost 93% of its population. The quantum engineers of Rigel have disbanded after their synthetic immune system modifications failed. In summary, we have lost 17 civilizations completely, and 23 more are in terminal decline." The silence that followed was profound. These were losses unprecedented in galactic history. Advanced civilizations with technology thousands of years beyond anything their ancestors could have imagined, falling like biological dominoes. "Is there nothing to be done?" asked the Zolarian representative, her crystalline form flickering with anxiety patterns. "Our best minds continue to pursue every avenue," Krell replied. "But the virus adapts too quickly. Each time we develop a countermeasure, it evolves before we can implement it widely enough." "And what of the quarantine zones?" asked Chancellor Vex. "Largely ineffective. The virus has demonstrated transmission vectors we still don't fully understand." The Aldebaran representative, a being of pure energy contained within a specialized field, pulsed with agitation. "Then we are finished. The Confederation will fall." "There is." Krell hesitated, unsure if she should mention the anomaly her team had discovered. It seemed too insignificant, too unlikely to matter. "Speak, Director," urged Vex. "There is one system showing unexpected resilience. It's not a member of the Confederation, a pre-FTL civilization in the Sol system, specifically the species known as humans." The chamber erupted in dismissive murmurs. Humans were known to the Confederation, of course. They'd been under observation for centuries as a potential future member species, but they were considered primitive by Confederate standards. "These humans," said the Zolarian representative, not bothering to hide her skepticism. "What makes them of interest?" Krell projected new data. Initial infection rates were over 70%, consistent with other mammalian species. But then something happened. Instead of continuing to decline, their infection rates plateaued, then began to drop. "They're recovering." "Impossible," stated the representative from the Medusan technocracy. "Our analysis indicated humans would be particularly vulnerable due to their biological inefficiencies and lack of unified medical response." "Nevertheless," Krell continued, "the data is clear. Not only are they surviving, but they appear to be developing effective treatments without Confederate assistance. Chancellor Vex leaned forward. How is this possible? Their technology is centuries behind the medical sciences of even our least advanced members. I don't know, Krell admitted. That's why I'm requesting permission to lead an expedition to Earth. If there's something unique about human physiology or their approach to the pandemic, we need to understand it. Preposterous, scoffed the Aldebaran representative. We should focus our remaining resources on protecting Confederate worlds, not investigating anomalies on primitive planets. Chancellor Vex raised a hand for silence. I disagree. At this point, any potential solution must be explored, no matter how unlikely. He turned to Krell. You have my authorization. Director, assemble your team immediately. 48 hours later, Krell's research vessel entered Earth's solar system. The planet appeared unremarkable from space, a blue-green marble wrapped in swirling white cloud patterns. Krell had studied human civilization extensively during her xenobiological training, but she'd never visited Earth personally. Few Confederate officials had. Contact protocols for pre-FTL species were strictly controlled. Approaching Earth orbit, announced the navigation officer. We're being tracked by multiple planetary defense systems. As expected, Krell replied. Engage stealth protocols and prepare the shuttle. I'll make the initial contact alone. Director, protested her chief security officer. Protocol dictates a full diplomatic team for first contact scenarios. This isn't a first contact, Krell corrected. The Confederation has maintained covert observation posts on Earth for decades. I'll be connecting with our embedded liaison. The shuttle's descent through Earth's atmosphere was turbulent but manageable. Krell had chosen a remote landing site in a region humans called Northern Finland, close to one of the Confederation's hidden monitoring stations. As the shuttle settled onto a snow-covered clearing, Krell donned her environmental suit and atmospheric filter. Human-compatible air wouldn't kill her, but it contained numerous microorganisms her system wasn't prepared to handle. The monitoring station was disguised as a weather research facility, staffed by Confederate agents surgically altered to appear human. Station Chief Narvin met Krell at the perimeter, his false human features showing surprise. Director Krell, we received no notification of your visit. The situation has changed drastically, Krell replied, following him inside. The Confederation is falling. Narvin, 28 species extinct or facing imminent extinction. Narvin's expression darkened. And yet humans are surviving. That's why you're here. You've noticed it too, then. It's impossible not to notice. Their response to the pandemic has been chaotic by Confederate standards. No unified approach, no centralized solution. Different nations, even different regions within nations, implementing varied and sometimes contradictory measures. And yet they're succeeding where we failed, Krell finished for him. I need to understand why. I need to speak with their scientists, their medical authorities. Narvin shook his head. That's a serious protocol violation. We haven't revealed ourselves to humans. The Confederation is dying, Narvin. Protocol is a luxury we can no longer afford. After hours of debate, Narvin reluctantly agreed to arrange a meeting. A select group of human scientists would be brought into the facility under the pretense of consulting on a new viral variant. Only when they arrived would the truth be revealed. The humans arrived the following day, 5 of them, specialists in virology, immunology, and epidemiology. Krell observed them through a one-way viewport before the revelation, struck by how ordinary they appeared despite their extraordinary resistance to the stellar plague. You're about to experience something unprecedented, Narvin told the assembled humans, still in his human disguise. Please remember that what we're about to show you is not a threat, but an opportunity for cooperation that could save millions of lives. With that, Narvin deactivated his holographic disguise, revealing his true sectoid form. The humans reacted with predictable shock. Gasps, widened eyes, one woman reaching for her phone before remembering it had been confiscated upon arrival. This is Director Krell, Narvin said, gesturing toward the doorway, where Krell now stood, her own environmental suit the only concession to disguise. She represents the Galactic Confederation, an alliance of civilizations spanning this sector of the galaxy. That might be your problem, Chen continued. Humans have lived alongside viruses our entire evolutionary history. Our immune systems are constantly adapting because they're constantly being challenged. We're hosts to thousands of microorganisms at any given time. Dr. Miguel Santos, a Brazilian immunologist, added, plus, we're genetically diverse in ways your Confederation species probably aren't. No centralized genetic planning, no standardized biological templates. We're a chaotic patchwork of adaptations and random mutations. And your approach to the pandemic itself? Krell prompted. Dr. Fatima Okik from Nigeria laughed. Even more chaotic. Traditional medicine, cutting-edge treatments, folk remedies, quarantines, vaccinations, no unified approach, just billions of individuals and thousands of different healthcare systems trying everything possible. And something worked, Krell concluded. Many things worked, corrected Dr. Howard Kim, an American epidemiologist. For different people in different ways. The virus couldn't adapt fast enough to counter all our countermeasures because there was no single countermeasure to adapt to. The irony was almost painful. The very aspects of human society that the Confederation had always viewed as primitive, their chaos, their inefficiency, their stubborn individualism, had become their salvation. As the discussion continued, an alert sounded from Marvin's communication device. His expression turned grave as he read the message. Director Krell, we have a problem. A Confederate battlecruiser has entered orbit. It's the Purifier, under Admiral Thrace's command. Krell felt her scales tighten against her body in alarm. Thrace, what's he doing here? Narvin's voice dropped to a whisper. He's demanding we turn over all data on human resistance to the plague. He's convinced their survival represents a threat, not a solution. A threat? That's absurd. Not to everyone. Narvin replied grimly. Some in the Confederation fear that if humans hold the key to surviving this pandemic, it will fundamentally shift the balance of power. Species that have viewed themselves as superior for millennia would suddenly be dependent on a primitive world. And Thrace would rather see the Confederation fall than change, Krell realized. The humans, sensing the tension, gathered closer. What's happening? Asked Dr. Chen. Krell made a decision. The old protocols were already shattered. There was no turning back now. Your planet is in danger, she told them. And we need your help more than ever. The Alliance of Adaptation. Admiral Thrace's ultimatum was clear. Surrender all research on human immunity or face quarantine enforcement. A chilling euphemism for planetary blockade or worse. He can't seriously be threatening an entire species, Dr. Kim said, his voice tight with disbelief. Fear makes beings of all species capable of terrible things, Krell replied, her mind racing through potential solutions. The Confederation was built on principles of cooperation and shared knowledge, but this pandemic has shattered many of our ideals. We have 12 hours to respond, Narvin reported. After that, he's authorized to take containment measures. The small group of humans exchanged glances that Krell couldn't fully interpret. Instead of the panic she expected, she saw something harder, more determined forming in their expressions. Then we have 12 hours to prove we're more valuable as allies than as test subjects, Dr. Okik stated flatly. We need access to your full research data on the virus and all affected species. Krell hesitated only briefly before authorizing full access to the Confederate database through the station's systems. The humans immersed themselves in the information with remarkable focus, their earlier shock at the revelation of alien life seemingly forgotten in the face of a more immediate crisis. The genetic adaptation rate is extraordinary, murmured Dr. Chen as she studied the viral structure. It's like it was engineered to evade standardized immune responses. Dr. Santos looked up sharply. That's it, isn't it? This isn't a natural pandemic at all. Krell's inner eyelids flicked nervously. We've considered the possibility that the stellar plague might be an engineered bioweapon, but found no conclusive evidence. Maybe you weren't looking from the right perspective, Dr. Kim suggested. The virus specifically targets aspects of immune function that have been standardized across Confederate species. It's less effective against systems with more variation. The implications were staggering. If true, it meant the pandemic wasn't just a natural disaster, but a deliberate attack designed to exploit the very uniformity the Confederation had cultivated for millennia. If this is engineered, Krell said slowly, it means someone anticipated our response strategies. Every standardized cure we've attempted has only made the virus more adaptive, which is exactly why human approaches have been more successful, Dr. O'Keefe concluded. We don't have a standard response. We try everything, all at once, from every angle. As they continued working, Narvin monitored communications from orbit. Admiral Thrace had deployed scout ships to establish a perimeter around Earth, preparing for a potential blockade. Time was running out. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chen had been analyzing the genetic structure of the virus against samples from recovered human patients when she noticed something peculiar. There's a pattern here I don't understand, she admitted. Certain human populations seem to have natural antibodies that partially neutralize the virus, but they're not from our exposure to this specific pathogen. Dr. Santos leaned over to examine her findings. Cross-immunity, he breathed. Some of us have partial immunity because we've been exposed to similar viral structures before. That's impossible, Krell objected. The stellar plague has no analog in known galactic biology. We've confirmed that. In known galactic biology, yes, Dr. Kim said, excitement building in his voice. But Earth has millions of viral species that the Confederation has never cataloged. Some of them may have prepared our immune systems without us even realizing it. The team worked frantically to identify which Earth viruses might provide this cross-immunity. The answer was astonishingly mundane, a family of common cold viruses that infected millions of humans annually. These seemingly insignificant pathogens had primed human immune systems to recognize certain protein structures similar to those in the stellar plague. This is brilliant, Dr. Chen said, her exhaustion evident but overshadowed by excitement. We can synthesize a vaccine based on these harmless cold viruses that will trigger immune recognition of the stellar plague. It won't be a perfect cure, cautioned Dr. Santos, but it could give infected individuals enough time for their natural immune systems to develop targeted responses. If we combine this with some of the antiviral approaches that have shown partial effectiveness, added Dr. O'Keefe, we could have a treatment protocol within hours. Krell felt something she hadn't experienced since the pandemic began: hope. But a crucial problem remained. Admiral Thrace will never accept a solution that comes from humans. He and his faction believe accepting human help undermines the foundation of Confederate superiority. Then don't tell him it came from us, Dr. Kim suggested. Present it as your own discovery. Krell's scales rippled in the equivalent of a human headshake. Scientific attribution is sacred in the Confederation. I cannot claim credit for your work. Your principles honored you, Dr. O'Keefe said quietly. But if Admiral Thrace destroys Earth, our solution dies with us. Sometimes the greater good must outweigh personal integrity. The debate was interrupted by an urgent alert from Narvin. Director, we've got movement. Thrace's ships are moving into attack formation. He's not waiting for the deadline. Open a channel, Krell ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Thrace's austere face, his ceremonial military implants gleaming against his gray skin. Director Krell, he said, his voice cold. You've been designated a security risk. Surrender your research materials and the human subjects immediately. Admiral Thrace, we've developed a potential treatment, Krell replied, choosing her words carefully. My team has discovered that. Your team includes unauthorized human collaborators, Thrace interrupted. This confirms our worst fears. These humans have somehow engineered their immunity to the plague. They're the likely source of the pandemic itself. The accusation was so absurd that Krell momentarily lost her composure. That's preposterous. Humans lack the technology to engineer something like the stellar plague. They've barely mastered their own genome. Yet they alone survive while advanced civilizations fall. Thrace countered. I'm initiating containment protocols. Earth will be quarantined permanently. All humans currently aware of Confederate existence will be removed for study. The transmission cut off abruptly. He's launched fighters, Narvin reported grimly. They're heading for our position. The humans had fallen silent, the weight of the situation crushing down on them. Billions of lives on Earth, trillions more across the galaxy, all hanging in the balance. Dr. Chen was the first to speak. We need to broadcast our findings, not just to your Confederation, but to Earth's governments as well. If enough people know about the treatment approach, Thrace can't suppress it. The Confederation communications network is locked down, Narvin objected. And Earth doesn't have the technology to reach other worlds. But this facility does, Krell realized. The monitoring station contains a quantum entanglement transmitter for emergency communications. It can't reach every Confederate world, but it can reach enough to make a difference. As Narvin prepared the transmitter, the human scientists worked frantically to compile their findings into a format that could be understood by medical practitioners across species. Krell assisted, marveling at the intuitive leaps and collaborative efficiency the humans displayed under pressure. We need to add a warning about the potential engineered nature of the virus, Dr. Santos insisted. If this is a deliberate attack, the Confederation needs to know they've been exploited through their own standardization. Agreed, said Krell. Including that hypothesis might also help explain why a solution from humans is credible. Outside, they could hear the approaching whine of Confederate fighters. Time had run out. Transmission ready, announced Narvin. But we need a direct neural interface to compress the data package. Only a Confederate citizen can provide that. Without hesitation, Krell stepped forward. I'll do it. The neural interface was painful, designed for emergency use, not comfort. As Krell's consciousness merged with the quantum transmitter, she became aware of the data flowing through her, not just the scientific findings, but the very experience of working with the humans, seeing their chaotic yet brilliant approach to problem solving, feeling their determination to help species they'd never even known existed until hours ago. In that moment of connection, Krell understood that the true message wasn't just the treatment protocol, but the demonstration of a different way of thinking. Adaptable, diverse, embracing variation rather than eliminating it. The transmission pulsed outward just as the facility doors burst open. Admiral Thrace himself led the strike team, his face contorted with anger when he saw the active transmitter. "What have you done?" he demanded. Krell disconnected from the interface, feeling strangely calm despite the weapons pointed at her. "I shared the truth. The pandemic exploits our uniformity. Our survival depends on diversity, biological, technological, cultural. These humans have shown us that." "Treachery," Thrace spat. "You've betrayed everything the Confederation stands for." "No," Krell replied firmly. "I've reminded us what the Confederation was meant to be, a collaboration of different species, each contributing their unique strengths. Somewhere along the way, we confused uniformity with unity." Thrace raised his weapon, but before he could fire, his communication officer interrupted with urgent news. The transmitted data was already being implemented on 3 Confederate worlds. Initial results showed promising responses in infected individuals. "Sir," the officer reported, "the Galactic Council is demanding you stand down. They'd voted to offer Earth provisional membership in the Confederation, with expedited technological sharing in exchange for their medical expertise." The Admiral's weapon wavered, then slowly lowered. The expression on his face was one Krell recognized all too well, the painful realization that everything one had believed was built on flawed assumptions. "This isn't over," Thrace warned, but the threat in his voice had diminished. "The Confederation cannot be dependent on a primitive species. Perhaps, suggested Dr. Chen quietly, it's time to reconsider what primitive really means. In the days that followed, Earth experienced the most significant transformation in its history. The revelation of extraterrestrial life, coupled with the knowledge that human biology held the key to combating the galactic pandemic, united the planet in ways previously unimaginable. Provisional Confederation membership brought technological advancements that helped Earth address its own crisis, while human scientists collaborated with their alien counterparts to refine treatments for the stellar plague. The diversity of approaches that had initially seemed chaotic to Confederate researchers now became recognized as a methodological strength. 6 months later, Krell stood in the newly established Earth Embassy on Centauri Prime, watching representatives from 17 species discussing treatment distribution protocols. The pandemic wasn't yet defeated, but the tide had turned decisively. Species that had been on the brink of extinction were stabilizing. Quite a change from when we first met, observed Dr. O'Keefe, who had been appointed as one of Earth's first diplomatic representatives. Admiral Thrace actually nodded to me in the corridor yesterday. I think that counts as progress. Krell's scales rippled in amusement. The old order is adapting, slowly but surely. Those who cannot adapt. Can it survive? O'Keefe finished. A lesson both our worlds needed to learn, perhaps. Beyond the embassy windows, the spires of Centauri Prime glittered in the twin sunlight. Somewhere out there, Krell knew, the creators of the stellar plague were watching their weapon fail, their attempt to exploit Confederate uniformity thwarted by the chaotic resilience of a species they had never accounted for. What happens after the crisis ends? O'Keefe asked. Will the Confederation truly change, or revert to old patterns? Krell considered this. Change is never easy, especially for civilizations that have known stability for millennia. But I believe this experience has taught us something fundamental, that true advancement isn't measured by technological achievement or biological perfection, but by the capacity to adapt. And humanity. Your species has much to learn from us, Krell acknowledged, but perhaps not as much as we have to learn from you. As the meeting began, representatives from worlds that had once looked down on Earth now turned to its delegates with respect, not because humans had achieved technological parity, but because they had demonstrated the one quality more valuable than any advanced technology: the chaotic, messy, brilliant ability to face the unknown and adapt. In the vastness of space, countless threats awaited, some natural, some perhaps engineered by hostile intelligences. But for the first time, Krell felt confident that the Confederation would face these challenges, not with rigid uniformity, but with the strength that comes from embracing diversity. The virus had broken dozens of species, but it hadn't broken humanity. Instead, humanity had adapted, as they always had throughout their tumultuous history. Now they would teach the stars to do the same.